What's happening, Expeditioners? It's Pete here. I want to read to you another chapter from my book here, Amazing Money Stories, True Tales of Greed, Generosity, Success, and Luck. This is available paperback, audiobook, as well as ebook. So this is going to be chapter 11, Out of the Blue. In the world of amateur car racing, one incredible story stands out, the tale of a retired naval officer and his lifelong love affair with a rescued 1955 Ferrari race car. It's a journey that spanned decades and culminated in a unique retirement. The car itself was worse than rough when Lieutenant Robert Phillips first laid eyes on it in 1960. The Ferrari 500 Mondial was just a disassembled pile of parts, abandoned at a Rambler dealership in Richmond, California by its previous owner. But Phillips saw something special. At just $2,225, it was barely affordable as a hobby racing machine. The sleek, lightweight 500 Mondial boasted a potent 2.0-liter inline four-cylinder engine engineered by Ferrari's brilliant Aurelio Lampredi. However, the four-cylinder was far less desirable than the coveted 12-cylinder engines that Ferrari was known for. Despite being the lesser version of the higher-end Ferraris, young Phillips took on the ambitious rebuild himself while stationed at a naval airbase. He spent 9 months of his spare time restoring every part of the Mondial to its former glory in iconic French racing blue paint. Once road-ready, Phillips obtained a race license and hit the circuit himself, even shattering records at events like Georgetown Hill Climb. His need for speed with the Mondial was insatiable, but duty called and he was deployed to Turkey, forcing him to leave his prized car in storage stateside. However, in 1964, the sailor was again available to pull off an epic comeback. He road-tripped the Mondial from California across the country to his New Jersey home. Phillips continued racing over the next few decades and stayed devoted to his Ferrari. In the late 1980s, he commissioned a full professional restoration of the 500 Mondial. After 8 painstaking years of work, the reimagined racer emerged flawless. In 2008, it made a triumphant return to shows, nabbing top honors like the prestigious Enzo Ferrari Trophy at Pebble Beach. A decade later, in 2018, the time finally came for Phillips to part with his life's automotive passion project. He put the revered 500 Mondial up for auction at Pebble Beach through Gooding & Company. Given its impeccable preservation and captivating underdog story, it's no surprise that discerning collectors went wild over the racer's provenance. When the bidding ended, the hammer dropped at an astonishing $5,005,000. For Admiral Robert Phillips, it was the realization of a lifelong dream, taking a forgotten budget race car and transforming it into a world-class, multi-million-dollar masterpiece through grit, skill, and an unwavering 60-year obsession. So, you were probably not surprised, knowing that he had a Ferrari at the beginning. A couple things that I did find interesting about this, and maybe the most interesting thing about this is this was a story that I learned from YouTube. Watching Jay Leno's Garage, he actually had Admiral Phillips on, kind of talking about his car before it went to auction. That's how I actually found out about it, and then years later, I kind of wondered what happened to that car, and so I looked it up and found out that I've sold for over $5 million. He was telling some of that story, which is where I get some of the details. So I had to go online and actually see if I could piece together some of the other stuff. I mean, he was just telling stories. Well, I found it at this dealership and was trying to put together the timeline and the dollars from other interviews that he was doing. So I think I got most of the details right, but again, they may be a little off. However, the whole idea about this is, to me, that even growing up, I'm 47 years old, but even as a kid, there were Ferraris, 80s Ferraris were kind of new Ferraris, 10, 12 years old at the time. And you could buy a Ferrari, like the Ferrari Dino before it became the Ferrari Dino, and the Ferrari 308s and all these cars. You could buy them from anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. Now, all of them are six-figure cars or more. And it's just kind of funny to me because this is a classic case of what's the one I can afford. It's the little baby four-cylinder, which actually happened to be torqueier than the 12 cylinders. More cylinders doesn't mean more power. It's usually kind of a ego thing, but, a nice big bore four-cylinder can produce a lot of power. And actually, there was a lot of advantage to having the four-cylinder over the 12 cylinders or even the V8s that Ferrari was producing. And so this engine is actually really sought after. And like anything that is unloved at the time ends up becoming kind of rare. And especially if it's part of a storied brand like Ferrari, the rare stuff becomes more expensive. And I want to actually say, I think the car sold again at auction years after the 2018 sale, something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the car is worth $8 million or $10 million today. But the cool thing about it is he just wanted to get into it. He loved Ferraris. That was obviously something that I guess in the 70s or 80s when he was doing it was an affordable-ish brand. I mean, it was probably more expensive than some of his other options of finding a domestic branded car, but he really wanted it, but he could still make it work. And then he's rewarded later. Honestly, if he hadn't saved $1 in retirement and just went to retirement and sold his car, $5 million is a decent chunk of change that you can find financial independence with. So I really like that story because there's so many of them, whether it's, I bought this land for my grandpa because he used to hunt on it, and then I just sold it for $1.5 million because it's on the lakefront, to, oh, this is my grandmother's jewelry, or she had this collectible, or whatever it is. I kind of like stuff like that where no one is doing it for the money, but they are rewarded with money later because they had a little vision at some point to find something unique or luxurious or expensive or whatever it was at that time. But sometimes you can find these things at estate sales or garage sales. So there might be some treasures out there. Hopefully that helps. I'll see you later.